Philippines. May call on Miss Alyssa Marilyn A. Manggubat. Your time starts now, Alyssa.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I am Alyssa Marlin from grade 9 as team leader. I am speaking on behalf of my classmates for their necessity, beneficiality, and practicability speech. So to combine all together to what we stated and understood by references and researchers, I would like to start my rebuttal by voicing out my arguments and to first notice what Boas from the beneficial negative side has stated. You stated that 6 hours with video games for PE will not be very qualified, for it will hurt others' eyes and lead to physical injuries. Yeah, I think you have missed out on the point that we are talking as video games as a sports curriculum, as in video games will only be used for PE lessons. Our next topic is, secondly, video games help with brain stimulation. Like I mentioned, it will help within improving memory as the law, which Felipe has stated, that as you are repeatedly playing the same game over and over, this helps with improving your memory for lessons. So a study conducted by Matthew Ventura found that college students who regularly played video games were most likely to persist with challenging cognitive problems than students who didn't. So you guys can say that education will not be able to mix in with video games, how does college students get scholarships for playing and also happen to get esports in tournaments and also happen to conduct a study in 2013 on how they were already improved? You've also mentioned that being, if I'm not mistaken, from Bea as our necessity, you have said that exposed at an early age will be really a big disadvantage for kids. But a story is, my mom would always ask me in terms of technology, how to do this, how do you play that? And as the world's getting more industrialized and familiar with technology that aims to help us with artificial intelligence, already stated by Cian, our necessity speech, this can help them advance at a young age and to already adapt in the future. Why do you think that us kids happen to help our parents within technology and video games? Because we are already introduced. Many researchers have said that we happen to play video games and already learn from video games itself before we could even start at the age of education going to school. You have also mentioned, nextly, is that it leads to aggressive behavior. When we play games, we also get a natural phenomenon of sulking and getting into fouls. It's the same thing for video games. It's a natural phenomenon to get mad and to express your anger and to be petty within a sudden loss. This is only framed as video games to be bad because most likely when we play video games at home, our parents see us get mad. Yet, tell me, do your parents see you play sports during school? Most likely they are at work. So they would not see the actual true scenario within video games at home. And in terms of physical injuries, as you all stated, there are more physical injuries when playing sports. And in terms of teamwork too, most likely you're playing with someone. The more each other gets aggressive, they start to hurt each other, which causes more violence than video games does. Researchers have shared that video games doesn't influence violence because you get to a certain point of getting aggressive, but not enough to reach out the use of violence. We've all played before, and have we ever committed a crime which is violence? No. So we can't point out how video games will be the influences. To further support my statement is, in terms of using your phone in class, in terms of us getting to very injuries and for us to misuse, I would like to say that video games are only framed as a bad example to the media. Only because it's only an object. It's more of just a technology that is made itself, and it has no voice that tells us to play or for us to reduce your sleep or your motive. It's between us people who are mishandling and misusing how video games work. So we shall not blame video games for for our lack of sleep, for getting lost in distraction, to get mad, because these are all gets onto your brain as a chemical reaction. This is our own temptations, as Beatrice has stated, due to kids having temptations with the presence. You've stated, aren't you contradicting that? It's just the presence of phone itself is just there. And the temptations comes from where? From us itself. So it's our own temptations that lead us to mishandle video games. And in terms of violence, as already stated, there are no crimes that links between the use of video games and then how it affects the media. A research would be by Benjamin Burrows, a professor of emerging media at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. There are no longitudinal video studies that shows a link between violence and video games. Some studies shows a short-term increase in aggressive, but never to the point where they would hurt others. Because, well, rhetorically, we are online. This helps within people who are disabled. As I know, as for what I researched, video games have more experience for everyone to be able to have fun, unlike sports. Because what happens if you are disabled? What happens if you're not allowed to move? Video games are there to guide you to a new reality that will guide you to experience how playing sports will feel like. And in terms of no physical movements, lastly, I would just like to say ACR is also having a collaborating with games on how they can make virtual reality for everyone to experience physical movements. For an experience or a story, we would play Just Dance and download phones, or we would have Kinect that would censor our body so that we can get actively moving. In terms of pandemic, how would we play when there's no space or any accessible when video games are just right there to guide us? Boas, to answer your question and for interpolation, though parents cannot afford a very wild desktop or a very huge gaming console, even a small phone, even my phone, even my tablet would be accessible to play games on the App Store. That is how accessible video games would be. So in conclusion, I have already proven all and answered every questions you guys have. We're leaving you with today the information from our side on why video games should be considered taught as a sport. Thank you for your nice presence and for listening to our side. We do hope that you think more of video games aside from a waste and distraction. So we would like to remind you that video games guide with mental health and are more accessible than how video games does. We hope that you change your opinion and perspective on video games. Therefore, I rest my case.